Hello, uh, me again. Thought I might do a tutorial today. It's been a long time. This is probably the fourth or fifth take on it. I haven't liked it so far. We'll see if we get through it this time. Wanted to cover a topic today that I usually don't have a lot of nice things to say about it, and that's soldering. Usually I promote brazing as a stronger, overall better, I think easier way of joining two pieces of metal. But there's some instances where brazing isn't the right choice. One of those is if you need to join a piece of metal to stainless steel. This little cheese fork thing is stainless steel. Stainless steel is tricky for a tinker or metal worker or artificer like myself because it can be brazed, but the process of brazing it will often run the metal up too hot and permanently scar it or discolor the metal or make it brittle. So we need a process of joining the metal, the stainless steel to whatever that doesn't require as much heat. Okay, so where is so that brings us to soldering. Soldering takes place. The solder material flows at 500 or so degrees compared to the brazing filler I use, which melts at 1500 degrees. There are brazing fillers that melt at lower temperatures. I actually think that the higher temperature is easier to work with. With soldering, you can use an iron, a soldering iron, like an electrician or electronics person would use for soldering components to a circuit board. You can use a little pen torch, like those little butane things. You can use a jet lighter, those little lighters with a turbo flame on them, or whatever they call it. Some considerations for soldering: things that make them well suited and things that don't. See if that made any sense. Where you want to use solder is when you have pieces of metal that are very fine. I do a lot of steampunk work, right? And I don't know if this will focus for you. Maybe you can see it. Like a little gear like this, there it goes, has very, very fine teeth. Now, it certainly can be brazed. I can get the jeweler's torch out. It has a little pinpoint flame, and I can closely monitor, my metal temperatures and keep everything just nice so I don't melt the little teeth off the end of that. It's fine. That's fine. A lot of times that's exactly what I'll do. And if I'm joining a brass gear to a copper whatever, I probably will braze it. I like brazing because it's a stronger, harder joint. With something like stainless steel, where, as we've said, we've kind of ruled out brazing, soldering becomes a much more viable solution. Great. So what can we solder to stainless steel? We can solder steel to stainless steel. We can solder stainless steel to itself. We can solder brass, bronze, any of the copper alloys, and we can solder nickel. What do we need to do to solder any two pieces of metal together? A lot of this is the same as brazing. The metal must be clean and bright. That means that you can see fresh, virgin metal. If you have a wire wheel, I like to put an abrasive wheel on a drill press or a bench top buffer, and you want to scuff the area till you're seeing bright metal. This has been put to it. If you're doing a piece of delicate jewelry or more or less finished jewelry, and you don't want to screw up the surface finish of the piece, maybe it's already looks nice. I wouldn't call this nice, but something like this hinge, you don't want to scuff it all up just to have to polish it again later. You can go at the area that's going to be soldered with some fine sandpaper. Whatever it is, you want to have a fresh, metal, bare metal surface. So it would say clean and bright. So the clean part is, wash it. Soap, water, rubbing alcohol, whatever. Get any grease residues off of it. And then you want it bright. You want to hit it with some sandpaper. You want to hit it with benchtop sander. This one's not even plugged in, but it's handy because we got the belt here, and it doesn't take much. You just want it scuffed up. You don't want anything between the two pieces of metal except solder when we're done. Okay. So as with brazing, you need a flux. Flux comes in a couple of different choices. For brazing, I like to use borax, but that's not going to do it for this. So we use soldering flux. I don't know. This is, well, wherever you buy solder, you can buy flux. For general purpose soldering, copper pipes, two pieces of copper together, even, although it's not great, even soldering copper to steel or copper to iron, just your basic regular paste flux, like this. I'll tell you what's in it. I don't know where it says it. It says it in here somewhere. It contains zinc chloride. Yeah, there it is. Contains zinc chloride. That's something they have to tell you is in it because when it burns, it releases some chlorine gas, and I don't know. Probably some rats in California got sick. If it's part of your occupation to use this stuff, you want to be real careful. More ventilation is always better than less, but it's not something that I put a priority on. So this is what they call a non-aggressive or a moderate action or a low action flux. The zinc chloride becomes acidic as it activates and removes the oxides that are forming on the metal. In most cases, that's great. That'll do just what you need. For stainless steel, really with steel you want something a little more aggressive. As a general use, what I like is Stay Clean. There it is. Now this has zinc chloride in it, like the other one. Like the other one, it also has petroleum jelly, which is gross. It also has, and you have to pull up the MSDS, the Material Safety Data Sheet, to find all of this out. But it also has ammonium chloride and hydrochloric acid. So this is a much more aggressive flux. When you're done working with it, you need to immediately wash the piece. If you leave it on there, it'll eventually corrode and dissolve the piece, I guess. And it looks like petroleum jelly. If you get it on you, eventually you'll get some skin irritation. This is not the reason I'm wearing rubber gloves. This works really well. This is what I'm going to use to demonstrate. What else I'm going to show you is if you don't have access to all of that. Hold on, I'm going off camera here for a minute. Yeah, there we are. If you don't have access to that, I'm certain you have access to the stuff that you would need to make it. I wouldn't use petroleum jelly. There's better ways to go. So the components of the aggressive flux are zinc chloride. Now maybe you can get yourself a tub of this stuff at a hardware store, which already contains zinc chloride and the base, and you're halfway there. It's horrible stuff. Looks. If you don't, you can produce your own. What you need is zinc. Zinc goes by a lot of names. One of them is pot metal or casting metal. It's a commonly used alloy. You alloy zinc with copper to produce brass. One place you might find it is these pulleys. They're made out of cast metal. They're zinc. So you dig around antique store, garage sales, things like that. You find a motor with a little belt pulley on it. That's zinc. You can tell it's zinc because when you put a torch to it, there you get it to go. You put a torch to it, it'll start to melt at a very low temperature, about 800 degrees. So what can you do with that? A pulley's not going to get you anywhere. Well, you go to that same hardware store and you look for muriatic acid. Muriatic acid is another name for hydrochloric acid. This is safer muriatic acid. I'm not sure what the point is, but it says it doesn't produce as many fumes, which seems like half the point. But anyway, so we have hydrochloric acid or muriatic acid, it's the same thing, and we have zinc. Zinc is the zinc part, and the hydrochloric acid is the chloride part, and what we end up with is zinc chloride. I'm going to show you that now. First, I'm going to have a little bit of my breakfast here, one of my favorite mixers, Chianti and Coke. Salute. We do a lot of talking. I want to do a lot of, I want to keep that up. I keep the old throat part, from parking. Alright, so if you've watched any of my videos, read any of my things, I have a pretty ambivalent attitude towards home and shop safety. It seems that way because a lot of things where people would normally be wearing eye protection on a tutorial, or face protection or hand protection, a lot of times I'm not. I would say that sometimes people take it to ridiculous extremes. If you read the directions for a screwdriver, it will tell you to make sure that you always use your eye protection. I'm not going to use eye protection if I'm drilling a hole or putting a screw into a piece of wood or something like that. I will use eye protection when I'm pouring hydrochloric acid. I will use hand protection when I'm using hydrochloric acid. A lot of times, a lot of things where people might be a little, dodgy about the pickling solution I use is a weakened sulfuric acid. I don't care. I reach in. It's fine. My hands, it doesn't cause any problems. Hydrochloric acid in the strength like this that eats away the surface of concrete gets the rubber gloves, and I can't recommend that strongly enough. The other issue is fumes. With the zinc chloride, the hydrochloric acid, it does produce some fumes. And I have an updraft. I'm not going to turn on because it's loud and I'm trying to record the video. But you can rest assured I'm going to click that on as soon as the camera's off. I'm just going to demonstrate the process here a little bit so that we get a better idea of what's happening. You can kind of have an idea of what to expect if you do try this at home. Put this under it so we can get a better view. Something I recommend you do, try this at home. Great, right now. Oh yeah, that's the smell. Now you want to use as little as possible because we're not creating large quantities of it. We don't want to waste it. So we have hydrochloric acid. I'm not going to use that big pulley that I just had. I'm going to use this chunk of one that broke. Let's see what happens. Alright, so what we see immediately happen is what you hope to happen when you're working with acids. And that's the cool stuff right there. You got bubbles. Bubbles, that tells you it's working. And what's happening is it's dissolving the zinc. The chloride, it's creating a salt. Sort of like sodium and chlorine go together and form sodium chloride. Well, this is zinc and the chlorine, the hydrochloric acid go together to form zinc chloride. Yeah, very aggressive. It's warm. And it's producing something that's probably poisonous gas. Yeah. Nice. Okay. When you're done with that, you lay it out into a glass or Pyrex pan. Once all that's dissolved, and you let the liquid evaporate out, and what you're left with is zinc chloride, probably some other compounds as well. But there it is. I'm going to go ahead and put this under the draft until it's done. So we're going to have a little edit while I clip out, and when I come back I'll have this gone, and I'll show you a little bit more about what's going on in there. Cool. Alright, I'm back. I'm going to leave that upstairs, outside, finish its business. So I got the mask off. I can take these off, I think. Yeah, why not? So a couple things to note about that. There's a fire hazard. Those bubbles coming up from that chemical reaction were hydrogen. Yeah, hydrogen, pure hydrogen, nearly, anyway. Enough so that a lit match or spark in that area, anyway. So, hydrogen, you'll figure it out. When it's done reacting, if you want to lay it out into a open glass pan, like a Pyrex cake pan, it's a nice one, and allow all of the moisture to evaporate out, and what you're left with is the crystalline salt, zinc chloride, which is what we're hoping for. And you can put that in a mortar and pestle, or just kind of mush it up with something to get a finer crystalline, it doesn't need to be as fine as like confectioner sugar, but like a fine sugar or salt consistency is a good place to start. So there's your zinc chloride. Well, now you need a base, and you need hydrochloric acid. Well, we know where the hydrochloric acid is. For any compound of flux that you're making, I would say probably 5% or less of it can be hydrochloric acid. And if you're working with a solution, you can go ahead and leave it in the solution form. I guess you can evaporate out the moisture, the water content of it, and be left with powdered hydrochloric acid. I'm not sure. That's the way I've always used it, like that. Another compound that might make your flux a little more stable, if you want to store it for a while, is called what is it called? It's called ammonium. Ammonium chloride. That's right. Ammonium chloride is a great compound for a lot of different things. Thanks, Chianti Coke. Ammonium chloride is made by mixing ammonia. Now this is great. This is the janitorial strength. Yeah, for routine cleaning, add 1 ounce of this to 3 gallons of water. Yeah, this is great. Danger poison, may cause burns. It will. Not bad, but you'll feel it if you get it on you. Very, very odorous. Ooh, but great stuff for cleaning because it dries clean. It's not like a detergent or a soap where after you clean up your mess, you have to rinse and clean up the soap. Once the ammonia dries, it's gone, all the way gone. Mixing that with hydrochloric acid will produce a reaction, will produce ammonia gas, so definitely do that one outside. And it will produce ammonium chloride, which is maybe a more stable form of than hydrochloric acid. It produces a salt that, when reacted, breaks down into hydrochloric acid, pretty much. Another way that you can find ammonium chloride is in a block of sal ammoniac. The block doesn't do you any good. Sal ammoniac, you can Google that. It is sold in stained glass supply stores. You can get like this little itty bitty tin of it, about as big around as a quarter, at Radio Shack for like $8, which is stupid expensive because this is a half-pound block. I paid like $6 or $7 for it. What you would generally do is melt up a bit of solder on your soldering iron, let that blob of solder drop onto the sal ammoniac block, and then take the tip of your solder and rub it with the molten solder on it. You rub the iron against the block, and it tins the tip of your soldering iron. It coats the tip of your soldering iron with the tin, so that you get a better, a dirty soldering iron is bad news. But you can also grate it out or shave some off and mix it up into your Flux compound. And it's actually a real nice way to go. So for my demonstration, though, I'm just going to go ahead and use the Radnor Stay Clean, which includes all of that stuff we've already talked about. The zinc chloride, the ammonium chloride, the hydrochloric acid, it's already in here. So I am going to turn. There we go. See how that goes. So the way we do this is we pick the pieces of metal that we're going to join together. In this case, I've kind of decided on using this hinge and this piece here. Now, stainless steel, you want to make an extra step, and what we're going to do is we're going to tin the stainless steel before we solder the other piece to it. What that means is we're going to go ahead and bond the solder to the stainless steel, and then we're going to clean it up and do it all over again, only this time add the second piece. So we're going to put a thin coat of this flux on here, and now, I don't know if you'll see it, let's move this up a little bit. Now what we have here is a huge soldering iron. I mean, this is monstrous, like obscene. This produces just a tremendous amount of heat. I can heat my shop with this thing here. You get a little demonstration of how to tin a soldering iron tip. Let me switch hands. Most common injury I've had out of everything that ever happened in my shop, the one place I'm most likely to injure myself is grabbing the wrong end of a soldering iron. It just doesn't. You want to think about it in terms of like a pencil, not so much with this one because it's just gigantic. But with a regular soldering iron, if you have it set down, you want to grab it like you'd grab a pencil, and that means putting your hand up where the heating element is, and they are wicked hot. The solder melts at like 500 degrees. This thing's like 900. It burns you instantly. So you have a dirty soldering iron. It doesn't transfer the heat to the metal very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit Good grief. Scuff a little of that off. You can also use these as wood burners. So I'm gonna, there we go. Get a little bit of solder melted, and then we're just gonna rub it in to the ammoniac. And when we're done, we need a little bit more. When we're done, we have a nice coating of tin on the soldering iron, which is exactly where we want it. So now I have the solder, I have the metal that has flux on it. I'm going to lay the metal against the soldering iron, and when I see the flux start to react, I'm going to add the solder. There it goes. There we go. I'm just going to get a big blob on there. Always make it look prettier later. So there we go. Got a nice coating of the silver and the tin. That's another thing I need to mention, is that when you're working with steel or iron, especially stainless steel, you really need to have the silver in the solder. It makes all the difference. Regular lead solder or tin antimony solder is not going to stick. Now, if I was using another piece of steel or iron to bond it, you know, putting two pieces of stainless steel together, then I would tin both pieces. Theoretically, I should probably do that with the brass, but I'm not going to, because I don't think it helps that much. So if your coating of solder is not very thick, then you can go ahead and when you heat the metal up, add a little bit more solder to it. I don't think that's going to be a problem with this, so all I'm going to do, are we seeing this? Yeah, pretty much. I can get rid of this, that's a distraction, is just add a little bit more flux. I'm going to set this down, the piece down right on top where I want it, and so that I don't drag the piece around when I take the soldering iron away, and as you see, it'll want to like pop up. I don't know how well you're seeing this, but you get an idea. I've got a pick here, so I'm going to press this down, and when I see the solder melt all around, you see it, there it goes liquid. I'm going to hold the piece down with the pick, take the soldering iron away. Now you have to be very cautious and wait for that solder to go solidus. Yeah, they use the Latin term liquidus and solidus for the temperatures at which your solder goes from solid to liquid and liquid to solid. It's kind of archaic, but it's also kind of cool to say, so that's what I did. Alright, set this down on a heat-proof surface. Probably a little hot to handle right now, so I'm going to go dip it. Yeah, got a little sizzle. This is nice. And there we are. Now we have a brass hinge that has been soldered to a stainless steel cheese knife, which is just what we needed, right? Now this isn't melted in and like acting like glue. This is a metallurgical bond between the brass and the stainless steel. It's about as strong as you're going to get without brazing it. And with stainless steel, it's one of the best choices for joining two pieces of metal at all. And I like it because once I'm done with this, I can just put it back on the heat, take it apart, clean everything up. To finish this out, what I would do is I would probably go back and heat this up, only this time instead of just letting it cool while the solder was still liquidous, I would take a slightly damp cloth and wipe all of the liquid solder that shows, and that'll smooth it out. It gives you a nice finish, and leaves you with a lot less finishing work when you're done, as opposed to like grinding down all of these little ridges and bumps. So there it is. A lot longer than I thought it would, but we covered a lot of ground.